there's two women who may run for president. One has a I can't even speak anymore, successful executive experience and has built a career based on hard work and results and lives her Christian beliefs. The other one is Hillary Clinton. Carly Fiorina has always believed in giving back to the community and has been an active participant in government and politics. She is a passionate, articulate advocate for conservative policies that advance economic growth, entrepreneurship, and innovative and effective leadership. Through extensive experience, she has learned that human potential is limitless and uniquely powerful resources can be unlocked, inspired, and focused on worthy goals and common purpose. And don't let anybody tell you she's not conservative. When she ran for Senate in California, she did not vary from the conservative line at all. And if you can do that in California, you are a true conservative. Carly started out as a secretary for a small real estate business. She then joined AT&T in an entry-level sales position. 15 years later, she led AT&T's spin-out of Lucent Technologies and then Lucent's North American operations. In 1999, she was recruited to Hewlett-Packard, where she would become the first woman to lead a Fortune 50 business. In her 6 years as chairman and CEO of HP, she would double its revenue to $90 billion, more than quadruple its growth to 9%, triple the rate of innovation to 11 patents a day, and achieve market leadership in every market and product category, and quadruple cash flow. Pretty good job there. Carly has always believed in giving back to the community and has been an active participant in government and politics. She currently serves as chairman of the American Conservative Union Foundation. They're the ones who host the CPAC, and it was founded by William Buckley and others. She is the chairman of Good 360, the world's largest product philanthropy organization, and chairman of Opportunity International, a Christian-based organization that lifts millions out of poverty through microfinance. Taking on tough challenges has been a hallmark of Carly's life. In 2010, she took on one of Washington's most entrenched liberals, Barbara Boxer, from the deep blue state of California. She earned more votes than any Republican nationwide that election cycle and raised over $25 million in 12 months. Carly became known for her proud adherence to conservative philosophy and her mastery of the issues. Carly was also battling breast cancer during that time, and at the same time, she and her husband, Frank, lost their younger daughter, Lori. Throughout these difficult times, Frank and Carly were sustained by the redemptive power of their Christian faith and strength of their family. Carly has many blessings, but the most important are her husband, their oldest daughter, Tracy, and her two granddaughters. In her best-selling memoir, Tough Choices, Carly credits her parents with providing an unshakable foundation for her life. Her mother taught her, what you are is God's gift to you. What you make of yourself is your gift to God. Her father, a strict contentious jurist, would eventually sit on the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, taught her conservative philosophy and the importance of fighting with integrity and courage for one's beliefs. Her lifetime of experience has taught Carly that the highest calling of leadership is to unlock the potential of others. So I'd like you to give a warm welcome to Carly Fiorina.
Thank you so much and good afternoon. I know that you are dedicated citizens because you're in here in this ballroom on a beautiful North Carolina spring afternoon. So thank you all for being here and thank you for that exceedingly generous introduction. You heard in that introduction something that my mother taught me. I was a little girl in Sunday school. I was about 8 years old, and she was my Sunday school teacher that particular year. And she gave to me and her other students a plaque that said, what you are is God's gift to you, what you make of yourself is your gift to God. And those words rang in my head, I think because I didn't feel very gifted, honestly. I was sort of a goody two-shoes middle child. My sister was more beautiful and more talented. My brother was a star athlete. I was kind of stuck in the middle. But I graduated from high school right here in North Carolina from Charles E. Jordan Senior High in Durham, North Carolina. So it's nice to be back. Do we have any Charles E. Jordan Senior High alumni here? No? A little far away. Okay. In any event, I love North Carolina. I'm happy to be back. My dad was briefly the dean of the law school at Duke University before he went on to become the lone conservative voice on the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. So I know something about standing with your principles when all around you disagree. I learned that from my dad. In any event, I left North Carolina, having graduated from Charles E. Jordan Senior High, and went on to enroll in Stanford University. I graduated from that great and distinguished university, however, with a degree in medieval history and philosophy. Why is it everybody laughs when I say that? Well, you laugh when I say it because while it was a great education in some ways, it also left me, let's face it, all dressed up and nowhere to go. So I went off to law school. My dad kind of wanted me to follow in his footsteps, but I discovered very quickly I hated law school. I hated it. And so I quit after a single semester. And now I needed to earn a living. So I went back to do full-time what I had done part-time to put myself through Stanford. Stanford's an expensive school. I was a Kelly girl at Stanford. How many of you ladies out here were Kelly girls? Okay, so we were, it's not called that anymore. It's now called Kelly Personnel or Kelly Services, but we were mostly women who were hired as temporary administrative staff in various offices. And one of the best jobs I had while I was at Stanford was to type in the shipping department of Hewlett-Packard. And I will date myself for a moment, but some of you who were Kelly girls might remember this. When I was a Kelly girl, the big technology breakthrough was the IBM Selectric typewriter. My granddaughters have no idea what I'm talking about, but I and the 8 other women used to sit literally and look over the edge of our typewriters while that little ball spun around. We thought that was very neat. However, if you typed in the shipping department of Hewlett-Packard where it was 8 copies and mimeograph paper in between, boy, sounds like a long time ago. The other great innovation of the time was a little bottle called Whiteout. In any event, I was a pretty good secretary. So as a law school dropout and a medieval history major, I go to the newspaper, want ads, and I accept the first job I was offered, which was to type and file for a little 9-person real estate firm. I didn't think the job was beneath me. I was happy to have a job. And about 6 months into that job, 2 men who worked there came to my desk and said, you know, we've been watching you, and we think maybe you could do more than type and file. Do you want to know what we do? Do you want to learn something about our business? And that was my introduction to business. And the fact that those 2 men saw possibilities in me changed the course of my life completely. Now, I've traveled all over the world, and I've lived in many places in the world, done business all over the world. And I know that it is only in this country that a young woman can start out as a law school dropout and a secretary and go on to become the chief executive of the largest technology company in the world. That's only possible here in America. And it's possible here because our founders knew what my mother taught me. Our founders knew that everybody has God-given gifts. And they founded a nation on a visionary idea that not only does everyone have God-given gifts, not only does everyone have potential, but that everyone has the right to fulfill their potential. And that the right to find and use your God-given gifts comes from God and should not be taken away by man or government. That visionary idea, radical at the time, founded a nation where more things have been more possible for more people from more places than anywhere else on earth. As I have gone on in my career, I have learned that, in fact, not only does everyone have God-given gifts, but most people have far more potential than they realize. That is how we managed to achieve such really extraordinary results at Hewlett-Packard, was by tapping the untapped potential of so many dedicated employees. And now in my role as chairman of Good 360, which you heard a little bit about, and the chairman of Opportunity International, I see people all the time who are in difficult circumstances and who nevertheless have God-given gifts. Recently, I was in Norfolk, Virginia, and we were distributing diapers. So Good 360 takes excess or obsolete inventory from companies, of which there is a lot. And instead of all of that stuff ending up in a landfill, which too much of it does, we distribute it to 45,000 charities in this country. We distribute diapers and shoes and toys and books and clothing and technology and shampoo. So I was in Norfolk, Virginia, helping to distribute diapers to women in difficult circumstances who were brave enough to bring their children into the world. And we were doing more than giving them diapers, of course. In a way, we were taking a chance on them, just like those two men took a chance on me so long ago. And because we were giving them a helping hand and taking a chance on them, they had focus and determination and hope in their eyes. Because despite their difficult circumstances, they want to live lives of dignity and purpose and meaning, and they want to build a good life for their children. At the end of January, in my role as chairman of Opportunity International, the largest microfinance organization in the world, we've lent $8 billion, $150 at a time. And I traveled to the slums of New Delhi, not only to have a board meeting, but also to meet with our clients. If you've never been to the slums of New Delhi, they are pretty grim places. Mountains of trash, sewage in the streets, marauding animals, people piled on top of each other. And yet, in the midst of this destitution, I met brave and beautiful women who were focused on building lives of dignity and purpose and meaning. And we, too, were giving them a helping hand. We were saying to them, you have value, you can build a life of dignity and purpose and meaning, and we will take a chance on you. There are so many people in this country who we are not taking a chance on anymore. And I think the most profound difference between conservatives and liberals is how we think about our fellow citizens. You see, as a conservative, I know that no one of us is any better than any other one of us. Every one of us needs at some point in our life someone to take a chance on us. I needed someone to take a chance on me when I was a secretary. I've needed people to take a chance on me all throughout my career. Every one of us sometimes needs a helping hand. I needed many helping hands when I battled cancer. And when we lost our younger daughter to the demons of addiction, our family relied on not just the strength of our family and the power of our faith, but we relied on the kindness of so many strangers who became blessings in our lives. So we all need a helping hand and someone to take a chance on us, but every one of us can live a life of dignity and purpose and meaning, and each one of us has God-given gifts. That is what we believe as conservatives, and so we know the highest calling of leadership is to unlock potential in others. I don't think liberals believe this. I remember when the teachers' unions in Chicago went on strike. The issue was performance in the classroom. And the head of the teachers' union took to the microphones and she said this: "We cannot be held accountable for the performance of students in our classroom because too many of them are poor and come from broken families." So what was she saying? She was saying, if you are poor and you come from a broken family, you don't have potential. You don't have God-given gifts. You can't live a life of dignity and purpose and meaning. And that is what I think liberals actually believe, that some are better than others, some are smarter than others. Don't worry, some of us are going to take care of others. I sense a deep disquiet in this nation. I've spent a lot of time in the last decade traveling across this nation, helping lots of people win elections, talking to all kinds of people about all kinds of issues, and I sense a disquiet that is not political, it is not partisan. I think the disquiet comes from a fear that we are losing something and a belief that we are missing something. And I think what people fear we are losing is the sense of limitless possibility that has always defined this nation. This is a nation that has always believed that if something was worth doing, we were going to do it. And we always thought that our own lives were defined by possibilities, by our own potential and our own gifts, and that our children's lives would be defined by their gifts and potential and possibilities. And yet, too many people now feel as though their lives are defined by constraints and a lack of possibility. And when we lose a sense of limitless possibility, we are losing the core of who we are. And I think what people think we're missing is leadership. Not management, by the way. What is management? Management is doing the best you can within the existing system. Managers do the best they can within the existing system. But leaders say, just because it's been broken for a long time doesn't mean it should be broken forever. I think people think we need leadership now. The kind of leadership that understands its highest calling is to unlock potential in others. So let us talk about what is necessary to once again have this nation be a nation defined by limitless possibility, because I think that is what is at stake in these elections coming up. And ladies and gentlemen, we cannot lose in 2016. So let's talk about what is at stake. First, I think we have trapped too many people in a web of dependence. Government has woven a web of dependence around people's lives, and it is virtually impossible for people to disentangle themselves. And if you doubt that, yes, you can applaud. If you doubt that, ask those single moms that I was handing out diapers to. Ask them about the choices we put in front of them. We make it so hard for someone to say, I am going to do more, work harder, lean forward, so that I can live a life of dignity and purpose. All the incentives are for people to lay back. And we know that work brings dignity to life, just as family brings purpose and faith brings meaning. And so we have to help disentangle that web of dependence. It hurts me when I hear some in our party say, we want to ensure a work requirement in welfare reform to save money. No. Yes, we want to save money, but we need a work requirement in welfare reform to save lives. If we want this economy to go and grow again, if we want to make sure that there are loads of wonderful jobs for people to go to when we help them disentangle themselves from that web of dependence, then we have to understand where jobs come from. And guess what? 2/3 of the new jobs in this country and half of the people in this country are employed by the same kind of little business that I started out in. My husband, Frank, we've been married 30 years. He started out as a tow truck driver for a family-owned body shop. The truth is, most Americans start in a little business, a family-owned business, a Main Street business. I come from the world of technology, and technology, as you know, we celebrate big entrepreneurs like Steve Jobs or Bill Gates or Mark Zuckerberg, and those guys are terrific entrepreneurs. But you know what? The real heroes of this economy, of our nation, are the people who form the little real estate company, the auto body shop, the nail salon, the lawn service company, the dry cleaner, the restaurant, the car dealer. It's those small and family-owned businesses that have made this nation go, and we are crushing them now. For the first time in U.S. history, we are now destroying more businesses than we are creating. You know, Elizabeth Warren talks a lot about crony capitalism. By the way, she's right, it exists. She is dead wrong about why and dead wrong about how to fix it. Crony capitalism exists because big government and big business enable each other. And if you doubt that, think about what has happened as a result of Dodd-Frank. Dodd-Frank, okay, is supposed to protect us. As a result of the passage of Dodd-Frank, 10 banks too big to fail on Wall Street have become 5 banks too big to fail. Meantime, 3,000 community banks have gone out of business. And why does that matter? Because it's the community banks that give a helping hand and take a chance on a family-owned business or a family or a small business. I was the CEO of a $90 billion business. I may not have liked regulations and tax codes and all the rest, but I could handle it. I could hire accountants, I could hire lawyers, I could hire lobbyists, but that 9-person real estate firm I started out in cannot. And that's why we're now destroying more businesses than we're creating. They simply cannot deal with the complexity, the power. The truth is, the weight of this government is now crushing the potential of this nation. And if you are wealthy and powerful and well-connected, you can handle big government. But if you are small and powerless, you are getting crushed. And so, if we want to get our economy going and growing again, if we want to lift up small and family-owned businesses, if we want to disentangle that web of dependence that we've woven around too many people's lives, what must we do? We must fundamentally reimagine government. It's not just that it's too big, it's too powerful, it's too costly, it's too corrupt, it's too complex. All of those things are true. It is true. But also these vast bureaucracies, which have been in place unchecked, let us be honest, for decades now, they have turned in on themselves. They no longer serve the citizens of this nation. Let's think for a moment about what's possible in the 21st century. I use the term reimagine government because we can do that now in this century. We have tools that we have not had before. Remember those women I told you about in India? I asked every one of them while I met with them, how many of you own a cell phone? They all raised their hands proudly. I have a cell phone, not mine, not my family, not my husband's, not my family's, it's mine. Why did I ask them? I asked them because I can deliver a loan, a line of microcredit to a desperately poor woman in New Delhi, Malawi, Rio, over a cell phone. But if you are a veteran, you will come home having served your nation. You will spend months filling out paperwork. You will spend many more months while some bureaucrat checks your paperwork. And then you will spend many more months waiting for someone to give you an appointment. And ladies and gentlemen, the regional headquarters of the Veterans Administration in Winston-Salem, North Carolina has had to have the foundations of its building reinforced because of the weight of the paperwork on the bureaucrat's desk. Really, we cannot settle for this anymore. How many of you are veterans here today? Thank you for your service. Let's give them all a big applause. I know that we have many politicians who are fine public servants, but honestly, too many of our politicians are managers, not leaders. And recall what happened when the scandal in Arizona burst onto the front pages of our newspapers. Remember the wait times for the veterans in Arizona? What happened? Within about 3 weeks, due to the incredible pressure. A bipartisan group of congressmen and senators passed a bill that said we could fire the top 400 senior executives of the VA if they weren't doing their jobs. Good thing to do. But have you heard much about it since? And by the way, wouldn't that be a good idea all throughout government? We need to know how our money is being spent. So how about we go to zero-based budgeting? It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous that you can get paid exactly the same way watching porn all day long. How many IG reports do we have to have that tell us that we got employees watching porn all day long and they get paid precisely the same way as somebody trying to do a good job? Why are we willing to settle for that? And we have to vastly simplify government. Those tax codes, those regulatory structures, they're so complicated no one can deal with them anymore. Obamacare started out as what sounded like a great idea, but the law itself is longer than a Harry Potter novel, not nearly as interesting, so nobody read it. It's accompanied by another 30,000 pages. So what's the consequence? Hospitals are consolidating, right? Why don't we try the one thing in health insurance we've never tried? Let's actually try competition. Let's actually try competition. We need leadership to unlock possibilities in other people's lives again. We need leadership to reimagine government, not politics as usual, not manager, not tinkering around the edges. And we need leadership in the world because the world is a more dangerous and tragic place when America is not leading. Like Hillary Clinton, I too have traveled hundreds of thousands of miles around the globe. Unlike her, I've actually accomplished something. Flying is an activity, not an accomplishment. And by the way, Mrs. Clinton, when you tell us that you have Secret Service agents guarding your server, please remember, we don't worry about it getting stolen. We worry about it getting hacked. I've met Vladimir Putin. He is a formidable man, intelligent, educated, charming, if you met him. He craves power. Military power, economic power, territorial power, political power. He will not be stopped by a gimmicky red reset button, and he certainly will not be stopped until he faces strength and resolve and moral clarity on the other side. President Obama and Mrs. Clinton both always give us a false choice. They say to us, there is nothing we can do unless we're prepared to go back to war. It's a false choice. It's not true. We have friends and allies around this world who wonder where we are, but they've been very specific about what they need. So what is it people have said they need as they try and stand up against Vladimir Putin? The Ukrainians have said, arm us, please. Help support our economy, please. We're not doing that. The Baltic states have said, stand up with us. The Eastern Europeans have said, rebuild your defenses, which President Obama and Secretary of State Clinton inexplicably and unilaterally withdrew from Poland. We ought to rebuild the Sixth Fleet. There are things we can do to stand up to Vladimir Putin, but we are not. And by the way, if we were the energy powerhouse of the 21st century, which we have every capability of being, then we also could be exporting resources to Europe so that Vladimir Putin could not hold them hostage. I know Bibi Netanyahu, and I sat in his office 5 years ago in a private meeting with my husband Frank, and 5 years ago Bibi Netanyahu warned of the dangers of Iran. He came here to speak to a joint session of Congress, not to insult our president. He came here because he desperately needed us to hear the danger that Iran represents. And so Israel, our strongest ally in the Middle East, has asked us to stop talking to Iran, and we will not. I know King Abdullah of Jordan as well. And what does he do when a Jordanian pilot is burned alive. He promptly executes 2 convicted terrorists without apology and starts bombing. Contrast this to what Hillary Clinton does when Benghazi is attacked deliberately by terrorists on the anniversary of 9/11 and 4 brave Americans are killed. What does she do? She asks us what difference it makes. She blames a videographer in LA. She tells us it is a demonstration gone bad, and a year after that terrorist attack, we have arrested exactly 2 people, the videographer and some guy in Libya who rots in a Manhattan jail. This is not leadership, and the signal it sends around the world is that we are weak. King Abdullah of Jordan asked for something very specific. He has asked for bombs and materiel. We have not provided it. The Kurds have asked us to arm them. We have not. The Egyptians have asked us to share intelligence. We have not. I've done business in China for many years. There's no doubt cyber terrorism is a huge issue, as is the stealing of our intellectual property. But every one of these problems in the world that stem from a lack of American leadership also represent an opportunity. We have an opportunity to rebuild European defenses. We have an opportunity to put together a new alliance in the Middle East to help stand up against ISIS and Iran. All of our wounds are self-inflicted. All of our problems can be solved, but what is required now is leadership. And what is required as well is citizenship. The kind of citizenship that you are demonstrating by being here this afternoon, the kind of citizenship that you're demonstrating by being involved and staying involved. I want to encourage you to talk to others, because we know people are most influenced by people they know. You have more influence than you know, and I believe this nation is at a pivotal point, and that is why I am very seriously considering becoming a candidate for the presidency of the United States. Thank you so much. And so I will close before I take a few of your questions, but I will leave you with this thought. We rightly celebrate our founding fathers, as we should. Those wise and brave men who had this idea. But among the most powerful symbols of this, our beautiful and blessed nation, are 2 women, Lady Liberty and Lady Justice. Lady Liberty stands clear-eyed and resolute. She holds her torch high. It is a beacon of hope in the world. And she faces outward into the world, as America always must. And Lady Justice, she holds a sword in one hand because she is a fighter. She is a warrior for the values that have made this nation great. She holds in her other hand a scale. And she says with that scale, all of us are equal in the eyes of God and in the eyes of the law, powerful and powerless alike. We all have God-given gifts, and we all deserve the right for a life of possibilities. And she is blindfolded. She put the blindfold on herself. After all, she is the one holding the sword. She put the blindfold on herself as if to say, it does not matter what you look like, or where you come from, or what your circumstances are. Every one of us is equal. All of us can live a life of dignity and purpose and meaning. And her blindfold also says that she knows that there are some things leaders must do to unlock potential in others. But there are some things that leaders should never do, lest they crush potential in others. Because humility and restraint are as important to leadership as courage and resolve. God bless you all, and God bless the United States of America. Thank you so much. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right, you know how it works. We've got some microphones. Raise your hands, and we'll have someone come to you with a microphone, and I'll call you right over here. And we don't give the mic. Remember, we don't hand the microphone to you. We hold the microphone. Especially politicians like him.
I'll just call you Carly, is that okay?
That's perfectly okay.
I'm so excited about your presidency, but that's not why I'm standing up, but I want to say that.
Thank you.
I'm glad that you mentioned leadership, leadership, leadership. And I wanted everyone in here to know, and I tell it everywhere I go. I spent 26 years in the Army, and I never once heard the word management mentioned. It's all about leadership.
Thank you.
Madam President,
Okay, you got to give me a lot of help before you can say that.
I believe you're the antidote to Hillary Clinton, and if the GOP doesn't put you front and center, we're going to miss a golden opportunity in 2016.
Well, thank you, sir. I will just say this to you. As we think about what it takes to win, just picture for a moment Hillary Clinton and I on a debate stage. And then just think about for a moment what she's going to have to talk about. She can't talk about the war on women. She can't talk about, all she has to talk about is her policies and her accomplishments. And isn't that what this election needs to be about?
Thank you for standing strong with Israel. I'd like to hear your thoughts on immigration reform.
Okay. So first, immigration reform, obviously it's a very important topic. So let's start with the basics. We have to secure the border. For many reasons. We have to, first of all, of course we can. Of course we can. We just haven't. We have to secure the border because if we don't, the current problem gets worse. We have to secure the border because we are kidding ourselves if we don't think our enemies have figured out we have a porous border. And we have to secure our border finally because when government doesn't do the basic things it's supposed to do, then people lose faith. And that's corrosive. So we have to secure the border. Second thing we have to do, which by the way, all the managers in Washington haven't done in 40 years, we have to fix the legal immigration system. Half the people here illegally overstayed their visa and nobody cared. We have 16 different visa programs in this country. And now we know, in the latest set of facts to come out about Hillary and Bill Clinton, that they were using one of those visa programs to feather the nests of their friends and political allies. And then we have to deal with people who are here illegally. And my own view is if you have come here illegally and stayed here illegally, you never get to be a citizen. Because there are consequences. And the people who have worked hard to earn the privilege of citizenship should have that privilege. And those who cheated the system should not.
Both you and Mr. Woodson brought up the middle class and the lower income people and their opportunities, and you brought up entrepreneurship and small business. So my question is for both of you, and it's based on some experiences I've had in the last year and a half. One of those experiences is I accepted an opportunity at North Carolina Central, which is a historically black university in Durham, to create an entrepreneurship program. The other one is my wife and I became associated with a program called Fathers Forever, which takes fathers who haven't made their child support payments and are going to jail, and then takes them, instead of going to jail, they go through a 28-week program of how to be a responsible father. The fact of the matter is 90% of them grew up in a home without a father, so they had nobody to teach them how to be a father. What can your two organizations do to help? In the case of the Historically Black University, I now have 14 students writing business plans, and I'm working with them to start their own business. They have no mentors. They don't come from families that would give mentors or be in an environment to have mentors. These fathers in Fathers Forever, they had no mentors. What can your two organizations offer because of who you are and where you are that gives us out here the tools that we need to help take both of these programs further?
Well, first, God bless you and your wife for doing what you're doing. And I think your story demonstrates the incredibly important role that civil society plays in making this nation stronger and better. We have a vibrant civil society in this nation, and it's a good thing. And a lot, frankly, of what government programs are trying to do is to crush civil society as well, so that government, rather than charities and churches and nonprofits, become the source of everything. And government bureaucrats, not because they're bad people, but a government bureaucrat many, many miles away doesn't care as much as you and your wife do. Now, what I would say is we've used the tool of micro-lending all around the world. Why don't we use it here? Why don't we use it here? The truth is, it is very difficult now for people to start anything because a consequence of Dodd-Frank is that no one is able or willing to take the kind of risks that would help the entrepreneurs in those kinds of settings. So I do think we have to look at tools that we know have worked in desperately poor parts of the world and apply them to some of our cities and states. The second thing I would say to you specifically is if you will go on the Good 360 website, it may be that your organizations can become part of our partnership network and that we have goods and services that will be helpful to you. Fundamentally, what we do is we provide goods and services to charities so they can spend all their time helping people as opposed to trying to acquire goods. So good360.org.
I appreciate very much your comments on bureaucracy and how it's limiting small businesses. My father often said to me, the reason America became the greatest country in the history of mankind was because of the lack of regulation, not because of the presence of regulation. And so I appreciate your comments, but how are you, if you do become president, and I would certainly think that would be a good thing, but how will you reduce this growing bureaucracy? When I remember back when Ronald Reagan stood in front of the American people with, about 8 pounds of paper and said, we need to reduce this, but even with Republican or Democratic leadership, our bureaucracy has continued to grow. We have a federal government that likes bureaucracy like most people like ice cream, so how are you going to stop that addiction?
Yeah. Well, it's a great question. And the real answer, or the real question, should be how are we going to stop it? Because it is we. It's leadership and citizenship. However, in 2015, we have access to a tool that Ronald Reagan didn't, and it's called technology. Think about this. The iPhone was invented less than a decade ago. Google, Facebook, all this stuff is less than a decade old. So for the first time in human history, remember I was a history major, so I tend to think about history, but for the first time in human history, any person, anywhere, can get any piece of information they choose and communicate with anyone else at a time and place of their choosing. That, ladies and gentlemen, is revolutionary. So now let's think about it. We have this tool to engage people in their government, in their democracy, and ours was intended to be a citizen government. It is what by, for, and of the people means. When did we decide that only professional politicians get to govern? Ours was intended to be a citizen government. Now, for the first time, citizens and leaders can interact. So, here's an idea. You know, the VA that we've been fiddling around with for decades, you know what I would do? I would take 10 veterans, 25 years old, I would put them in a room and I would say, you tell us how you want to be served. And they would give us a blueprint. Now let me give you another example. We ought to take every regulation we have. It is decades worth of geologic sediment, honestly. I mean, think about it. Do you know of one regulation that's ever been repealed? I don't. Okay, so it's just decades of it. Let's get them all out there. Let's put every single one of them out on the web. Let's ask small business owners, do you like this one? Do you not like that one? How many people vote for American Idol every week? I mean, ask yourself, how many people vote for American Idol every week? I know it maybe sounds silly, but what would happen if we said to the American people, you know what? If you like one you find in there, it gets 5 stars. If you don't, it gets 1. If it gets 1, you're off the island. I mean, it would put, I know, I'm mixing my shows, I get it, but the point is, politicians respond to pressure. Pressure can be brought to bear on the political system through technology, and citizens can be informed about what is going on in their government through the power of technology as well. So that's why I use the term reimagine. We are living in a time where there are endless possibilities. But we need leadership to see and seize those possibilities. So as I leave you this afternoon, look, I think we need to win in 2016, and I think we need to think very carefully about what does it take to do this job now. And I'll tell you what I think it takes. I think it takes an understanding of how the economy actually works. I think it takes an understanding of how the world actually works and who's in the world, not because people have read about it, but because somebody has been in it, lived in it, worked in it. I think it requires an understanding of bureaucracies and how they work and what it takes to change them. And I'll tell you what, if we go to zero-based budgeting and pay for performance, there'll be a lot of changes in that bureaucracy. I think it takes an understanding of technology because it is a transformational tool. And finally, I think the job takes an understanding of executive decision-making. And executive decision-making is knowing how to make tough calls in tough times with high stakes for which you are prepared to be held accountable. That's what it's going to take. We can solve every problem. We can heal every wound. We can lead again in the world, but it will require leadership and citizenship. And so, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to help me, go to carlyforamerica.com. Thank you so very much. God bless you.